let's talk about the rivalry for a second. We've talked about the game. We've talked back and forth. Let's talk about the rivalry. In your time, and you could just use your time as a student or your time growing up, your favorite Miami-Florida State game. But I'm going to do it like this way. I want your favorite Miami-Florida State game that Miami won, and I want what you think was the best Miami-Florida State game that Florida State won.
My favorite is 2000. That was my freshman year. That was my indoctrination into this rivalry. Again, for those who are watching on the Florida State channel, long story short, I'm from Detroit, grew up as a Michigan fan. I didn't get into Miami, Florida State until I went to Miami as a freshman. I'd seen the baseball team and the football team every once in a while, whatever. I was not a diehard Miami fan growing up. I was not. I grew up in Michigan. It happens like that. But my freshman year, that was the one that really got me into this rivalry and everything. And I wrote about it in a piece years ago on State of the U, why I became a Miami Hurricane. We did that coordinated content across the summer. So you can read all this. But basically, I was there. I'm a music major, was a professional musician and things like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, And this is back in the Orange Bowl days when they had the Florida State band up in the last full section at the upper deck. And we were hype. I didn't even get into the student section because the student section was closed by the time I got there. Had to kind of finagle my way into the game at all. Worked my way. I was sitting around the 50-yard line with a father and a son from Dallas who were plying me and my good buddy, Lewis, shout out to Lewis Bird, with beers all day long because I was 19 years old or whatever. I couldn't even drink. He's like, here, just take these. And we're all raucous and everything. And the whole Orange Bowl is going crazy. And you see one dude in a white jumpsuit stand up in that section. And y'all know the whistle that I'm talking about because everybody's heard it. Deep, 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 deep. And the drum corps fills in on the pickup to that downbeat. And it was the fire of 10,000 suns when that Marching Chiefs band opened up. And 85,000 people shut TF up because it was raining from up top. So you had the physics of sound. They're screaming down on these horns. And oh my God, I thought I was ready. I'd been to Michigan State. I've been to Michigan State, Penn State. I've seen every other Big Ten team at the big house other than O State because I just had never seen that. But I'd been around what I thought were good marching bands, what I thought was a live sound. But Michigan, they do this lockstep thing when they play the victors and it restricts the sound. Florida State did not do any of that. They'd hit me in the face and said, whoa. This is different. And then the game started, and it was back and forth, and all these names, 37-year-old Chris Winkie on one side, and you got Ken Dorsey coming down on the other side. I mean, it was, littered with all pros and Hall of Famers, and it was incredible, have that last drive to go down. Dorsey to Shockey, obviously. Matt Munyon goes wide right from 56, I want to say, for the tie. And that was obviously my one. We can't go anywhere else but that. That was just a really incredible game and my first Miami Florida State game. So I would have to start there because that's where my experience started. In terms of games, good games that Florida State won, and again, this is since 2000, which is really my connection to this rivalry. I will say hold on, I got to look it up because it's an even year. Hold on one second.
I can probably name the one he's thinking. Was it in Miami or Tallahassee?
It was in Miami.
Okay.
Yep, I'm right. It was 2014.
Oh. Yeah. Jalen Ramsey.
I should have said that. I was going to guess that. This is the Dalvin Cook takeover, right?
You said 2010. I thought that for a second.
No, that was a good game also. Yeah. But for me, and especially because I'm going to err a little bit more on when the Miami was good part of it, right? This is a game that Miami had a lead, came out and, was up 23-10 at halftime, that was the Clive Walford touchdown year where we came out heavy personnel into the huddle and we go 5 wide. So, we come out, 12, or 21, 2 backs and 1 tight end, with a running back, a fullback, and 2 wide receivers. So you figure, okay, they're going to go I formation, which is the thing that we did. But then with that personnel, we came and spread the field. Freddie Stevenson, I believe it was, couldn't keep up with Clive Walford up the seam. 63 yards later, you get a touchdown. We're up by, 2-3 scores then. things are rolling. And that was a game where it wasn't necessarily that Florida State was a lot better than Miami. Like, obviously you won the game 30-26 and like, yeah, everything like that. But it was really the mentality that as Seminoles, we're not going to lose to the Hurricanes, regardless of what that scoreboard says right now, period. And that's why I said for all these years of the streak, we didn't have to just beat Florida State once. We had to beat them twice. We had to beat them on the field. And then you had to kill that mentality that regardless of the situation, we can come back against Miami, because in 2010, 2012, 2014, they had overcome whatever the situation was. Like, insert situation here, we're going to come back and win because we're Florida State, they're Miami. That's how it works. And this is a year where, to that point, we had beaten the team, or were beating the team. And then the mentality kicked in the second half, just like, we're not going to lose to Miami. And then they started making some of the margin plays, some of the 50-50 plays started going, garnet and gold instead of orange and green. And then in that fourth quarter, Dalvin Cook, I mean, it was that simple. Y'all had him and we didn't. Like, it was, it did not matter if it was inside run, outside run, toss, zone, man, whatever it was. There were guys in position to make plays. He's still running. Arm tackles, ankle tackles, wrap up, multiple guys. It didn't matter. Dalvin Cook himself just said, I'm not going to lose this game at home in Miami against the Miami Hurricanes. And it sucked because coming out in the third quarter, especially, Miami went very conservative. And if you remember the previous year when Miami beat Florida, that was one of the worst Florida teams we'd ever seen. And Miami went up in that game and went Operation Shutdown, park the bus. We're going to do nothing to really, affect the game either way. We're going to be really conservative with it. We're just going to shut down, run this clock to the end, and hopefully get out with a victory. And we tried to do that against Florida State, and y'all were like, that's too easy. Like, yeah, that's too easy. Like, you got to keep going. And we threw one vertical route to Stacey Coley in the second half, and it was up the Florida State sideline. I think it was like a 30 or 40 yard pass. It was down to the 15 or 20 yard line, and it was one of those that's going to be complete or out of bounds, and it ended up being out of bounds. But that was the singular play that was really any kind of push. You know what I mean? Any kind of vertical threat to the Florida State defense, and everything else was these short crossing routes. It was these conservative running plays. It was, nothing that could really break, because you guys were a great tackling team. So you at that year. So you're not going to think that a 5-yard pass is going to go 85. If you're throwing a 5-yard pass, you're going to get 5, maybe 6 yards. And that's what happened. And then, like I said, you guys came out really strong. Jameis was doing Jameis stuff, and Dalvin Cook just was Dalvin Cook, and we didn't have him. So I would say that with a close runner-up to 2010 would be the best games of my experience with Miami, Florida State, that Florida State ended up winning.
There are plenty of recent memories that would be good for Florida State. I've been around this rivalry my entire life. I can go back to like the '89 game when we gave Miami their only loss in a national championship season. That '93 game when we finally beat them after 2 straight years of wide rights, and then we went on to a national title. For me, I'd say my favorite Florida State game was the '99 game, because that was the game where the 4 seasons before, Florida State had handedly beat Miami, and Miami was not good at that point. Obviously, 1997 they were 5-6. And it come down a little bit. But that was the first game where Miami came in there. We were the number 1 ranked team in the country. And Miami came in and played well. Ken Kelly was quarterback. It was the first time we looked at a Miami team and thought, okay, Miami, Butch Davis may start to have this thing in order. And we ended up winning that game 31-21. And then obviously my favorite game of all time in the series, and I hate to say that my favorite game in all time in the series was a Miami win, but I wrote a paper about this in college, about how it was the greatest college football game of all time. 2000 Miami Florida State was the greatest college football game of all time because of the amount of talent on that field. You're throwing out literally, you've got Anquan Boldin on our side. You've got guys who were ended up going to the NFL on the Miami side. Santana Moss was on that team. Ed Reed was on that team.
Reggie Williams was on that team.
Right. I mean, you're literally looking at you have NFL rosters of talent on both teams right there. Miami jumps out to a 17-0 lead. Florida State comes back. It's 24-20 late in the fourth quarter. Miami's able to get that touchdown to an unknown tight end. I wonder what he ended up doing. Oh, yeah, Jeremy Shockey ended up having an NFL career, won a Super Bowl in New Orleans. it was literally, and yeah, and of course, in a typical Florida State Miami series, it has to end in a wide right. It was without a doubt the greatest one, and that was when the series finally said, okay, it's back to being the best game in college football.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. And, you know, that 20-year period between 1983 and 2002, it was the greatest game in college football. I mean, it was the greatest series. It was the series that decided you're going to play for a national title if you win this game. Hell, even if you lose the game like in 89, you're still going to play for the national title.
I mean, if you lose a game like 2000 when they robbed us and put y'all in there to get shut out. Yeah, that too.
Oh, it should have been. I've said it, but it should have been Miami, Florida State playing in the Orange Bowl. Oklahoma's offense had no business being on that field with either one of us. They had a great defense. Great defense. Obviously, they shut us down. So give them credit for what it's worth. But if you're saying the best two teams at the end of that season, the best two teams.
Are we taking the team that actually won the national championship on the field and taking them out of the national championship game?
Yes, I think Miami and Florida State. If you're saying who were the two better teams at that time, I think Florida State and Miami were the two best teams at that time. Oklahoma earned it, obviously, because they went undefeated. So we'll give Oklahoma their credit. But if you're saying who were the two best teams at the end of entering the bowl season for the 2000 season, it was Florida State and Miami.
The two most talented teams.
Absolutely.
Oklahoma pitched a shutout.
Give them credit. They did a great job.
I'm giving them credit.